Welcome back to Taival Outdoors. My name is Joel and today we will talk a bit about this, my backpack, my current modular carrying system if you want to be fancy about it. I know many of you have been asking about my review of this backpack as well as the external frame that I have attached here. But this is not that video. If you want to see kind of the details and insights of this pack, then check out my video. It's called Full Loadout for 7-Day Backpacking Trip. I will leave a link down in the description as well as a card up here. In it you can see all the internal organization of this pack as well as how much gear you can actually fit inside of it. And I'm talking about this section of the backpack alone. But in this video we'll go through each of these individual components and how they fit together and my reasoning behind why I got them in the first place. And in this configuration that you see, this setup right now, the total capacity, at least on paper, of each individual pouch and component is 81 liters. I know that this might look, especially on the camera and the angle and everything, a bit bigger than that, but I would say it is pretty accurate, the 81 liters. And if my math is correct, the 81 liters comes from, first of all, this is the Eberlestock F65 Little Big top backpack. It is a roll top backpack, and in this extended form, Eberlestock says that it will hold 64 liters. Then on top of the F65 Little Big top, another Eberlestock product. This was called LP1 FannyTop pack, but I believe now it is called just Multilid or something like that, a bit more simple name for it. It is really hard to attach to this backpack, and as far as I can tell, really hard to attach to any Eberlestock pack, but nevertheless it is meant to act as a lid on any of their packs. The capacity of this one is roughly 5 liters, and it does have a hydration port and supports roughly 3 liter hydration bladder also. We'll take a closer look at this in just a second. And then here on the sides I have Savotta's vertical pouches, the biggest ones they make. These are size L and each of these is 6 liters. I went with these because they were the biggest that I could find that were still in this. They had this nice vertical shape. They weren't like really baggy and flopping everywhere. So that's nice. Definitely overpriced in my opinion, made of 1000D Cordura, but I guess I don't have to worry about breaking them or wearing them down, so there is of course that. And all 4 pieces are attached to the Eberlestock F1 Mainframe. So this is an external carrying frame. It's a bit hard to see here, but I'm about to take it off of this system so you can see and get a better look. But everything is attached to it, and the kind of final modification or add-on to this whole carrying system is this shoulder harness. Both the backpack as well as the mainframe come with this standard harness, and as you can see, there is absolutely no padding with this because these are also meant for hunting, so you need to have quite thin shoulder pads so you can wield a rifle with these packs if you so choose to do. So anyway, I swapped that shoulder harness and put instead these Eberlestock's thick or padded shoulder harness, whatever it's called. Unfortunately, they manufacture this only in this kind of sandstone color, so it's a bit more like coyote sort of color, whereas the backpack and the lid, the color I believe Eberlestock calls it military green. This is kind of gray green color, very nice color. So it is a different color, but in the end I think it goes well with this whole setup. But before going deeper into the individual components, I will now start a bit of a time lapse of me taking everything apart and then putting this waist belt as well as this harness back on the original F65 Little Big top backpack. So stay tuned. Alright, and here everything is. Let's start with this frame. Now you can see it a bit better. So this is an external frame with pretty substantial shelf underneath. And the way this backpack attaches to this frame is first of all by these long zippers that run on both sides, and we'll get back to these long zippers in just a second. And then you can see that there are 3 female buckles on each side, and these correspond to these backpacks 3 compression straps. And now when you connect this and use these 3 straps, then these 3 unfortunately are left without any use, and they sort of flop around. And design wise, I don't have an immediate solution to what would be a better way, because of course the zippers alone are not going to hold this whole backpack attached to this frame, especially once you really start putting some weight into this. So the straps are absolutely essential, and they do compress the whole pack then tightly against this frame. So I do like that setup. Of course you can then attach additional gear down here, but maybe the main gripe that I have with this frame, F1 Mainframe, is that why do these zippers run from bottom upwards? Because when they run like that, they of course have tendency to go down with gravity, right? Dog is adjusting the camera, sorry about that. But yeah, so to solve that, Eberlestock has added these small tiny loops up here. You really have to stretch this plastic hook yeah, I'm not going to bother. Anyway, so there are these loops that keep the zippers up, but why not just run the zippers other way around? Then there wouldn't be any need for these kind of loops, and I don't know, seems like a silly design to me. In terms of carrying comfort, I'm not yet 100% convinced. This has some big lumbar pad, good padding on the back, good airflow. All of that is great. But when compared to this, the back itself has very similar pads as these ones in the frame. Not really a separate lumbar pad, but you can see kind of that curvature that comes here. And I feel like when carrying this one, it tends to kind of sag. It sits quite low, especially since the lumbar pad is so big. And I noticed now in my previous trip that I did to Lapland, when I had this full 81 liters back to the gills, because I was carrying also food for the dog, that I had to adjust this harness all the way to the lowest position. So like the smallest person position. And I'm not a small person. I'm not particularly short either. I'm not sure if that is because this frame does come in 2 sizes, standard and tall, and this is the tall one. And everywhere I looked, it said that they are exactly the same, except that this tall one has maybe this much more room up here. But I'm not sure that maybe the carrying system, the harness itself, is also situated a bit higher on this tall model. And that's why I really had to drop this down all the way here to make the whole thing sit higher up on my back, which was kind of strange. And in the end, although we did spend the whole 5 days there in Lapland in true wilderness, Our longest day of hiking was, I think, 15 kilometers or something. So I cannot really say if this did a big impact or not. That is still something that we need to properly test and see in the future. Because year ago I did week-long 170 kilometer backpacking trip solo with this pack alone. I didn't have these side pouches, I didn't have this lid, I didn't have the external frame. All of those things were actually something that I had already planned on purchasing over a year ago before my 170 kilometer long backpacking trip, because I figured I need all that space, I need carrying capacity. In the end, 64 liters was enough for me. Granted, it was a trip that I took late in September, I think. So I didn't have all the winter gear and stuff like that with me, which of course would have increased the bulk and where I would have definitely needed more pouches and such. But anyway, I've been really happy with the carrying capacity of this F65 Little Big top alone. I have no regrets about this backpack, but there are a couple of design features that I have to mention that are, again, bizarre in my opinion. First of all, about those long zippers that I just mentioned. They run all the way down here, or actually, yeah, you start from here and go up here. And that is bizarre, because now when you use this backpack, you have this much, that's maybe 15 centimeters long stretch of zippers, two of these flapping around on both sides of your back, and one of these has actually the zipper pull itself. And that is strange. In fact, if you look closely, this fabric has already started to fail. I hope you guys can see that. I have no idea if this is in frame or not, but it has started to kind of fray up a bit. And this is all from the fact that this extra zipper gets then stuck between the waist belt and my back, or in other ways. Just this you can see that it's a really bizarre thing to have this here, especially if you don't own the external frame. Then you would never need these zippers, and I don't know, it's a weird design feature. Same goes with this. You can see this thin moly or pulse webbing throughout the backpack, and Eberlestock has some fancy name for it. Moly 10 matrices hold traditional moly accessories while weighing 60% less than standard 25mm or 1-inch moly arrays. And that is not a trade-off that makes any sense for me. So what if a couple of pieces of webbing weighs 60% less? That's not where the real weight savings can be had when designing a backpack, in my opinion. Starting from the bottom, first of all, only 2 rows of these. If you attach, let's say, sleeping pad, you want these rows to be as spaced apart as possible, because when you're tying everything down, then you're pulling the whole sleeping pad towards the whole bottom and not just a narrow section of the bottom. Because now when the webbing is so close to each other and you loop something here, you end up with this kind of configuration, right? And then that means that your sleeping pad will flop around no matter how tightly you put it, because these thin straps of webbing are so close together. It doesn't really, you cannot never really cinch it down so hard that it stays flush against the bottom of the pack. So again, kind of a no-brainer. I don't know why they did that. Same story continues here on these sides. There's only one measly row of this tiny webbing, and even just 2 rows of normal standard moly webbing would make it possible to securely put a side pouch like this on there. Now what you would have to do is route this webbing through here and then back onto itself, and that's it. That's the only option in terms of the moly webbing, that you can attach any pouches to the sides. So what you absolutely have to do, like you saw earlier, I had then this side compression strap on top of those pouches to keep them in place, because this is not adequate way of attaching anything. But it seems that the reason why Eberlestock went with just this one row was because they added carrying handles to the side of the pack. And first thing I did when I got this pack, I cut those off, because carrying handles on the side of your pack, that doesn't make any sense. If they would have just originally left those carrying handles out, I'm sure that would have been just as much as weight saving as, you know, going with this lousy webbing. So they could have used proper webbing instead. So I don't know, seems kind of weird. I know it seems like there's a lot of negatives with this pack, but honestly, I'm really happy with this pack, and I love the internal pockets and everything, and the carrying comfort with this roll top. But I just have to point this out because not a lot of reviewers talk about these things, and to me these are just kind of like obvious design faults. And maybe that is the reason why currently when I'm filming this video, this backpack has disappeared from Eberlestock's website. I hope they are making like a version 2 of this, because it is a very capable pack that they don't have anything quite like it to replace it at the moment. So hopefully we will see Little Big Top number 2 coming up in the near future. And the last thing that I hope that they fix for that one is, I guess, again related to the same kind of using that small 10mm webbing. I added a bit of Velcro loop panel here for a couple of patches, but also because I've been struggling to find a way to attach this. So this is the new what is called Multilid, and it looks very good in my opinion. It has a couple of waterproof zippers, which is kind of strange because the fabric isn't waterproof in itself. But anyway, a couple of small compartments on one really small compartment back here, then one bit bigger that goes all the way through here, but it's kind of flat, and then the main compartment, which was 5 liters, I believe. And I mean, functionality, build quality, yeah, it's all there. It's definitely an Eberlestock product, but the only straps that come with it are these ones that kind of act at the same time as compression straps, but also you are supposed to use these to somehow attach this lid to your pack. And there is no good way of doing it. Eberlestock has a video on their YouTube channel where they show kind of, one of the guys who works there shows kind of, this is my way of attaching it, and it is miserable way. It's just not convenient. It is not convenient at all. So what I did instead is I used these guys. I just loop these through the shoulder strap webbing, or this is the load lifter webbing, and then I will just loop this part of the lid through here. Let's do the same on the other side. And now I kind of have a floating lid, but not, you know, not super floating lid, because I'm limited to whatever strap there was originally with this pack. So if you want something that goes even higher, you would have to replace the strap completely. But the bigger issue is then, you know, that's easy, that can be solved with a couple of plastic clips, but how do you then attach this lid to the pack? And I could not find a way to do it, so I purchased these Maxpedition T loops, maybe, and I had a couple of these leftover Tasmanian tiger female buckles that can be attached to basic molly in any way around. So I attached these, the Maxpedition T loops, and then this 10mm molly, and yeah, now I can sort of clip everything together, but it's not super pretty. And the main problem, of course, with this system is that, as you can see, they keep coming off from this 10mm molly matrix. So how this could be solved is that, and what's something that I will probably next up do, is that I will cut away all of this molly webbing from the sides and the lid, maybe from the bottom as well, and put in proper molly webbing, because then I can do this exactly same thing, but I don't have to have this Maxpedition add-ons here, but I can just put these female buckles directly to that proper webbing, and then I will have something that these attached to. So yeah, it's kind of a do-it-yourself backpack when it comes to this lid, and somewhat when it comes to these side pouches. But in terms of modularity, it's really hard to beat this system, because according to Eberlestock, this compresses down to 37 liters, and I bet you can go even smaller than that when you use these straps to really, like, you can make it almost flat. And then to come from that 30 or so liters up to 81 liters is something that I really just couldn't find a good alternative to this setup. I looked at many backpacks from manufacturers from across the seas, so from United States as well as from Europe, and well, first of all, many of the modern backpacks seem to be just big, like, bags, essentially roll-top bags, because they want to be lightweight. So they're really simple. They don't have any internal pockets, or sometimes not even external, these pouches such as these ones. And the way they treat kind of modularity is that, yeah, you can use this roll top to extend or compress the back. And then in some cases, for example, Kuiu makes ultralight gear, and I looked for a longer time on their backpacks, but their solution is that buy one frame and then buy many backpacks. Whereas how I looked at my system is that I buy this one backpack that can do most of the things, that can extend from 35 liters, let's say, up to 67 liters, can easily take additional 12 liters, and then plus 5 from the lid. And if I really need to have an external frame, I can then add that external frame instead of having many different size backpacks. I like this type of modularity better, because this offers me more options, and instead of having to choose between, let's say, a backpack that's 30 liters, that's 60 liters, that's 90 liters, I can just always take the same backpack, have my gear laid out exactly the same way, which actually is a really important thing to do, that makes everything around hiking and the camp life a lot easier. And then just add pouches if needed, you know, add that 5 liters, add that 10 liters, 15 liters as needed. And in that regard, I have no regrets, but take this video more as a warning that if you want to go with this system, there's some DIY things to do and some design features by Eberlestock that I don't really agree with. But all in all, I haven't had issues with the build quality or things like that. It's relatively simple to take away the waist belt and the shoulder harness. And in fact, because both of these came with the waist belt, both this backpack as well as the frame, I now have kind of one extra waist belt that I can use, for example, when skiing with the dog, or as I have it right now, I have it attached to this 511 backpack. This is a 30 something liter backpack, I think, but the same waist belt, actually kind of identical in color, but this went straight on here, so I can now have a smaller backpack with a waist belt as well, because I'm going to take this waist belt off of this backpack, like these shoulder harnesses, when I'm using the external frame anyway, so I don't need to have another waist belt attached to the external frame all the time, if that makes sense. Yeah, I guess that covers then everything. Bit of a long ramble, sorry about that. If you still have some comments, questions, please leave them down below, and make sure to like this video if you found it helpful, especially if you are in the market for a new backpack or some kind of a modular carrying system. This should have been giving you some ideas, at least that was the goal. You've been watching Taival Outdoors. I will see you all in the next one. Bye.